Today on the BRS-160, we're going to skim this tank. Hey guys, my name is Ryan. Welcome to another week of the BRS-160, where every week we do our best to help you guys, members of the reefing community, enjoy your tanks and find new ways to explore the hobby. We do that by following the setup and progression of this 160-gallon reef tank. Protein skimmers are a staple of the reefing hobby. Today we're going to talk about what they do, how they work, are they required to be successful reefing, advantages and disadvantages of the different skimmer designs and brands, tips on how to select the right skimmer for your tank, maintenance, and what we selected for the BRS-160. Basically, we're polluting the tank every day with various foods and sometimes other additives. Some of these things will be consumed by fish, corals, crabs, or most of the living organisms in the tank. The net result of all these biological processes pollutes the tank with unwanted nutrients like phosphate and nitrate, among other unwanted pollutants like yellowing color pigments, odors, and toxins. In most cases, a huge amount of the food out of the tank doesn't get eaten by the fish, and it's broken down into these unwanted elements by bacteria and other processes. Really, the easiest way to control the nutrient load in the tank is to control how much food we add to the tank. However, feeding the tank's half the fun of owning it. Most people desire a large volume of fish, and proper nutrition is at the core of fish and coral health. Proper feeding in low nutrient, low toxin water really seems to be at odds with each other. This is why we do water changes. By removing some of the tank's polluted water and replacing it with new salt water, we can keep these unwanted pollutants in check. There are three basic problems with this method of nutrient control. First, if I do a 30% water change, that might feel like a lot, but in reality, that means 70% of the pollutants are still in the tank. Water changes alone are really only a solution if you do them consistently. Second, buckets of salt are not cheap. At $50 for economy salt, $90 for a box of premium salts, water changes are probably the most expensive method of keeping nutrients low. Lastly, everyone hates doing water changes. It's easily the most unpleasant component of owning a reef tank, so anything that reduces the need for critical but expensive and time-consuming maintenance like water changes is probably a good investment and likely a pretty key component of a long-term successful reef tank. This is where protein skimmers come in. They're designed to remove organic compounds before they fully break down into unwanted nutrients and reduce the need for water changes. For instance, if we can remove half of the uneaten fish food, fish poop, and decaying matter in the tank like algae, bacteria, and organic particulates, we can probably cut our need for water changes in half as well. How they work is fairly simple. The dissolved organic compounds we want to remove are charged in a way that they're attracted to air-water interfaces like bubbles. More or less, these pollutants naturally stick to the surface of bubbles. A skimmer more or less just creates these bubbles, provides contact time for the organics to stick to the surface of the bubble, and then foams over into a collection cup where it's removed from the tank. Well, fairly simple. This design is really effective and an excellent way to remove a lot of the nutrients we add to the tank and does reduce the need for water changes. Just to give you an example of how effective they can be, I collected a bunch of waste from various skimmers here at the office and dumped it into this tank. You can see it's obviously very polluted. This is a time lapse of how quick this Vertex skimmer was able to strip the water of the pollutants. Set up correctly, they can be a very valuable tool. Before we get deeper, I think we should answer the question of if you need a protein skimmer to be successful reefing. I can give you a really confident answer of absolutely not. I've seen way too many amazing reef tanks without skimmers for this to even be debatable. The only thing that's absolutely required is you have some reliable method of nutrient control and export. A skimmer is just one of those methods. There are a lot of reefers out there that rely solely on water changes and don't run a skimmer. For instance, on a tank like a 20-gallon Nuvo, 25% water changes is just a 5-gallon bucket, which is not only super easy to do once a week, but only costs a few bucks. A skimmer might also not be in the budget, or you don't want to mess with adjusting more equipment, or don't have the space for a decent one. To be honest, larger frequent water changes are also one of the most successful reefing methods I've seen. You can have a really amazing tank with just water changes. However, large frequent water changes become less and less a viable option the larger the tank is because of the work involved, and it just isn't economical at some point to spend $50 to $100 a month on salt to avoid buying a $300 skimmer, which can easily cut the need for that in half. So the answer is don't let anyone tell you that a skimmer is an absolute necessity to owning and maintaining a reef tank, because it isn't. It is, however, a way to decrease the work involved with owning a reef tank that everyone hates, reduces nutrients and toxins, all of which increases the chances of long-term success, and in the long run will likely save you money and salt. For that reason, I'd wager over 90% of the reefers out there consider a skimmer an important component of their tank's filtration and life support system. Okay, so how do we select from all the options? Because they come in a seemingly endless sea of shapes and sizes: cone shape, oval shape, wine bottle shape, single pump, dual pump, recirculating options, AC pumps, DC pumps, space-saving internal pumps, all kinds of bubble plate designs, 30 different brands. There's no legit way for the average person to sort through all this. Most reefers just end up buying something recommended on a forum. Almost everything the hobby knows about skimmers is the accumulation of personal anecdotal experiences, which is often very insightful and intuitive, but not always accurate and pretty skewed by brand and purchase loyalty. In the hopes of clarifying this a bit, we're going to cover the major differences based on the experience the team here at BRS has had with hundreds of skimmers over the years. There are three major elements to a skimmer: the pump that creates the air-water interface, or bubbles, that the organic compounds like to stick to, the contact time the bubbles have with the organics, or overall dwell time the skimmer has to remove the organics passing through it, and lastly, things like shape and bubble plates, the effect of flow dynamics that get the organic-laden foam over the edge of the skimmer neck into the cup, which effectively removes them from the tank. Almost all the pumps out there work on a needle wheel design that uses a venturi to suck air in and essentially whisks it together to create that air-water interface or foam we're looking for. Biggest differences between the various AC pumps out there will be the amount of air they draw in, noise they produce, longevity, and size. The AC pumps popular in the industry have pretty much segmented themselves into three major categories over the years. The economy pumps, which are often made in China, come under a wide variety of brand names. Considering the low costs, are often excellent values. However, you have to have reasonable expectations for the lifespan of the pump, amount of noise they produce, and performance. The Italian-made Cice motors common on Vertex skimmers and the Italian Eden pumps on Skimz have really found themselves in a unique position where they're likely that ideal mix of cost and quality and really become the go-to standard for reliable skimmer motor blocks. The individual skimmer brands often design and manufacture their own needle wheel impellers designed around their own specific skimmer needs. Result is typically a long-lasting motor block with awesome foam production. If you're in the market for the best of the best in AC skimmer blocks, most brands will select the Ascol motor block, also made in Italy, and again custom design their own needle wheel impellers. The Vertex Alpha is a good example of a skimmer that uses this type of motor block. Outside of that, there's some relatively new controllable DC pump options out there which have some unique advantages. First, most of the DC pumps are almost silent, but they're also controllable, so you can adjust the flow and amount of bubbles produced. They do cost a bit more, but I think most people will find the quiet operation and flexibility to be worth the added expense. Next major component of skimmer design is contact or dwell time the bubbles have with the organics, which is a combination of flow rate through the skimmer and size of the skimmer body. If you pump the organic-laden water through the skimmer too fast, there won't be enough contact time to remove the organics. Too slow, and there might not be enough organics to create a real foam head, or you might not filter enough of the tank's water per day. Biggest factors that impact contact time will be the size of the skimmer body and how much water it can hold, combined with the flow rate of the pump. Pump placement also has a big impact on the contact time with organics. External pumps mounted on the bottom of the skimmer generally utilize the full height of the skimmer chamber for bubbles or close to it, but the external pump inherently takes up more room in the sump. The space saver designs, which have the pump mounted on the inside of the skimmer, have become really popular because they're a lot easier to fit into the sump. However, the space the pump takes up inside the skimmer body will likely cut the overall contact time by up to half if the size of the body isn't increased in conjunction with this. For the most part, skimmer manufacturers will match the air intake, pump size, placement, and flow rate to the skimmer's body size and a suggested tank size for you to create what they believe is the ideal contact time and flow rate for your tank, but this is just a general recommendation. Heavy feeders should likely upsize a step, and really low stock tanks can probably undersize a step. Outside of that, for those of you looking to control contact or dwell time to optimize results in your specific tank, you have two options. First option is valves on the pump itself or on the air intake, which allows you to adjust the amount of air injected into the skimmer. Controlling the amount of air is one way of controlling the amount of contact time the organics have with the bubbles. While one might assume that more air is always better, that isn't always the case. The ability to easily adjust the air intake is a nice feature. However, this doesn't have an effect on dwell time, or time the water's inside the skimmer, and the amount of time the skimmer has to remove the organics that enter it. This is where recirculating skimmers come in. Recirculating skimmers generally have two pumps, one for generating the bubbles and one for feeding the tank water to the skimmer. This has a few major advantages. First, it gives you full independent control over air injection and dwell time, meaning you can maintain the ideal amount of air-water interface and then have 100% control over the flow rate or dwell time in the skimmer to maximize the removal effectiveness. Second, when you use a single pump for both flow and bubble creation, head pressure created from having to fill the skimmer with water above the sump's water level has a huge impact on the skimmer's ability to inject air. This means not only will the pump produce less bubbles, but the water level in the sump will have a huge impact on performance, and you'll likely have to adjust the water level in your sump until you find the ideal height, which might not be possible in some sumps. A single pump designed solely for the purpose of air injection doesn't have to deal with the same head pressure issues and not only maximizes the air injection, but also takes the sump height almost completely out of the equation because the water feed pump will do almost all the work maintaining the correct water height regardless of the water level in the sump. Recirculating models are also what you'd use if you ever wanted to plumb a skimmer externally. The recirculating models generally take up more space in the sump, but if you can fit it, the flexibility, stability, and performance gains are likely worth the space and expense. We set up this demo of two skimmers that use the same pump, one recirculating and one not. It's pretty easy to see the recirculating model injects a lot more air, really not even in the same ballpark to be honest. Last component of skimmer design is body shape and bubble plates. You're going to find them as cylinders with cones on the top, entire body is a cone, wine bottle shape, or even ovals, as well as a plethora of bubble plate designs. Body shape and bubble plates are designed to impact flow dynamics and how the bubbles rise inside the skimmer to maximize foam formation and how it flows over the edge into the cup. That said, the BRS team here has seen really solid performance out of all types of body shapes and bubble plate designs, so I wouldn't get super hung up on this. The shape is likely just as much about visual appeal and marketing aspects. One element on shape that can be important is really about how it fits in your sump and what the usable space left over in your sump is afterwards. So check the measurements, not only if the skimmer will fit, but what's left over after the skimmer's in the sump. For instance, the Skimz oval skimmers are designed to maximize this space. They might have the same overall footprint in square inches, however the ability to turn it sideways in the sump chamber will likely be a better utilization of the space and leave more room for additional equipment in the future. The last piece of this is there's probably 30 brands out there, which makes it pretty darn hard to select the right skimmer. Like most of the product categories on our site, the team here at BRS tries really hard to limit our offerings to the best values available and the products the team here at BRS would actually purchase and use themselves. Reef Octopus, Vertex, and Skimz are the brands we use here at BRS and recommend to others because we believe they provide the best value, meaning the best mix of performance, build quality, features, and reliability at their particular price points. There's nothing in the market that even approaches the value Reef Octopus offers with their Classic Series skimmers. Reef Octopus is one of the longest lasting players in skimmers. If you don't have a fortune to spend and you're looking for one of the lowest cost options out there, the Classic Series is it. If you're looking for something a bit more powerful and advanced, Reef Octopus offers other lines primarily based on more advanced pumps like the Regal line that uses their DC pumps or the popular Bubble Blaster pumps on the Super Series. The Vertex line is a German-designed product that leverages manufacturing in China to produce a refined product that has an affordable price point, which is the very meaning of value. Refined means they use a reliable Italian-made C-shape pump with their own custom impellers, custom volutes to adjust air intake, a sleek wine bottle shape, titanium screws, threaded necks, ozone ports, silicone pump silane connections, and a variety of other performance features. One of the things I like most about the Vertex line is it's much more straightforward than other brands. They've removed all the clutter of 30 to 40 skimmers other brands build and provide clear direction and honest tank size ratings based on their thorough testing standards. There are currently just 4 Omega models that cover 90% of the common tank sizes out there based on the C-shape pump. The larger Alpha series are based on the Askell motor block and great for some of the larger tanks out there. I've also toured their facility in China and seen Vertex's R&D facility that's really based around producing effective skimmers, not just gluing a pump to the side of an acrylic cylinder and calling it a skimmer. In fact, the skimmer testing station we have here at BRS is an exact copy of one of their testing stations. Once I saw it in action, I had to have one to help us test out new skimmers on the market and help BRS stay on top of only offering the products with the best value. This system has multiple live aquariums in series that get fed a ton, so performance is really based on what we believe to be real-world results. Skimz is a final brand we stock. There are a few things I like about Skimz, starting with they have some of the most flexibility out there. Most of the AC models have an air intake adjustment valve on the silencer, a unique type of gate valve for controlling the water height, and the Italian-made Eden motor blocks provide excellent results. There are also some things we like about specific models as well. For instance, the oval models not only save in space based on the shape, but the quiet DC pump installed inside the skimmer is also going to save on space. To increase contact time and maximize the usable space inside the skimmer body, the pump is mounted inverted in an open volute design, which fills the entire body with bubbles. On the standard models, I tend to like the cylinder-shaped bodies. While they might not look as cool, the design can hold the most water and increase dwell time within the skimmer. I also prefer the recirculating models over other brands because they're more refined and compact than other recirculating options out there. One other thing about Skimz is we worked out a deal with them to offer replacement parts here at BRS in case you ever drop a skimmer cup and break it, a snail crawls into the pump and breaks the impeller, silencer breaks. All the most common parts are readily available. Last bit before we get to what we selected for the BRS 160 is tuning and maintenance. I know we'd all like to just plug them in and just hope that they work, and sometimes that's the case. However, sometimes you need to let them break in for a week or so and then start to tune it to your tank's needs. This means adjusting the water height in the skimmer itself, water height in the sump, and adjusting the air intake. Everyone has different tanks, livestock, and feeding habits, all of which affect skimmer performance and settings. Even the type of food like pellets, flake, or frozen can require different settings because of the differences in the oil content or speed at which it breaks down. So don't get frustrated if you don't have instant success. It probably just needs some tweaking. I personally find the recirculating models to be the easiest to tune for the reasons we already discussed. Outside of that, you will need to perform some maintenance on the skimmer for it to continue to work well. Biggest component of that is just cleaning your pump and removing the calcium carbonate buildup. Typically this is done with an acid bath like vinegar or something a bit less aggressive like citric acid from tunes. If you keep the pump clean and take steps to prevent things from getting sucked into the pump, it will likely last a very long time. Vertex also sells an option called the Vectra, which keeps the skimmer neck clean, reduces maintenance, and improves performance. More or less, it's just a rotating squeegee, a simple but effective approach. If you own an Omega or Alpha skimmer, this is a solid upgrade. Okay, so what did we select for the BRS 160? I don't think you'll be surprised we went with the recirculating option with the Skimz Monster SM202. I just want complete control over dwell time, and I don't want to be concerned about the sump's water height. The skimmer suggests a feed rate of about 500 gallons an hour. I'd say a good rule of thumb might be to process between 1 and 3 times the tank volume an hour. It's likely this tank has about 200 gallons with the sump, so I'll start there and work my way up. You could do that with an AC pump that's intentionally oversized a bit, and a valve of some sort to control the flow, or a DC pump which can be easily adjusted. In our case, we're going to feed it with the manifold we installed earlier, driven by the Ecotech Vectra pump. You'll notice that we took out the 1-inch Marine Pure plates. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Once we installed the skimmer, it became obvious that the skimmer would just destroy them. We also thought the 3+ 4-inch Marine Pure blocks in the refugium area was more than enough filtration. That wraps up this week's episode. Next week, we'll start down a 5-week series on lighting, covering everything we've learned about halide, T5, and LED lighting over the years. I think we're going to shake some things up, so hit that subscribe button and join in on the fun. As always, if you think these videos are helpful and valuable to the hobby, let us know by hitting that thumbs up button. See you next week with Week 18, Lighting.